Here are the opinions of mine that Australian people hate. Now, since starting my channel, I have spoken a lot about Australia, my views towards the country, everything like that. And it's fair to say lots of people have different opinions towards them views. Some people agree with most things I say, some people it's a mixture, and some people completely disagree with everything I say about Australia. Most of it is very supportive, but there is certain opinions that I have and certain things that I say about Australia that there's a common theme of Aussies that don't like that opinion, and we're going to go into that in today's video. Before we get into it though, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and yeah, let's get into it. The first one is that UK sport is better than Australia. Now, in my opinion, I do think sport in the UK is better. First of all, we've got the Premier League, we've got the football, which is, well, it's the biggest sport in the world, and it's like the biggest league in the world. I do not see the same passion in Australia for Australian sports compared to in the UK, the passion that people have for English football. Like the passion's nowhere near the same. You know, people watch the Aussie sports, I feel like, more on a casual basis, more for like entertainment rather than passionately wanting your team to win. And I'd also say the UK just has bigger events. I feel like bigger sporting events. The only big sporting events in Australia I feel like are very specific to Australia. They're in Aussie rules or AFL. That's like the biggest thing here. But the thing is with that is only people in Australia care about that. With the UK, you've got sport that people watch all over the world and that people play all over the world. Yes, AFL is big in Australia, but nowhere else do people play that. And I think, yeah, just the sporting events, the passion towards the sports, and the overall sporting scene, I think, is way better in the UK. And it's fair to say most Aussies that I've spoken to or in my comments disagree with me on this one, but personally I think the UK wins when it comes to sport. Point number 2 is Perth is the best city in Australia. Now, this one causes a bit of a divide. A lot of people do agree with me actually on this one, in Perth being the best city, but a surprising amount of comments that I get replying to me say that Perth is nowhere near their favourite city in Australia. I feel like Australia is one of them places where everyone has their own favourite place. Everyone is so competitive about the cities, and I feel like everyone has their favourite, and then all the others are nowhere near close to that. A lot of people say that Perth is boring and it's isolated. I personally disagree. It's definitely my favourite city in Australia, and to them people who say that Perth's boring, my question to you is, and leave it down in the comments, if Perth is boring, then what do the other cities in Australia have that Perth doesn't have, apart from more people? Personally, it's my favourite city. A lot of Aussies disagree with me on that. Point number 3 is not necessarily an opinion, but it's the fact that I speak about Australia and I rank Australian cities without having been to Melbourne. Now, a lot of Aussies find this pretty surprising, especially as Melbourne's one of the main cities in Australia. But yeah, after 3 years nearly here, I have never been to Melbourne, and in fact I've been to pretty much every other city apart from Canberra, but who goes to Canberra? Yeah, I feel like every city in Australia I've had a reason to go there. It's either been a place I've really wanted to go, or it's been on a route. For example, on the East Coast, it's somewhere you'd stop on the way. But Melbourne, I don't know, right at the bottom of Australia, I've never really wanted to go to Melbourne massively, mostly because I'm moving all the way from the UK, right? I want to move to Australia and be in the sun, on amazing beaches, and kind of not be in a massive city, to be honest, being from a fairly built up area in the UK. I feel like Melbourne is just a massive built up city, hasn't really got the best beaches or the best weather, so from what I've heard obviously, but you know, that alone doesn't give me a reason to go there really. I think if Melbourne was on the East Coast, maybe somewhere between Brisbane and Cairns or whatever, or Sydney, I probably would have gone, because it's kind of on that route. I haven't been down to Victoria at all because, I don't know, there's no reason for me to. Maybe you lot can persuade me in the comments, but a lot of Aussies do get annoyed that I rank Australian cities without having been to Melbourne, which, yeah, it's fair enough, but I always say this is a rating based on my experience and the cities that I've been to. I never comment about Melbourne because I've never been there, but a lot of Aussies don't like that, especially the ones from Melbourne. Point number 4 is the worst city in my opinion is the Gold Coast. Now, similar to Perth being my favourite, a lot of Aussies disagree that the Gold Coast is the worst. And I did a video recently where I did compare all of the cities in Australia that I've been to from best to worst, and the Gold Coast was the worst. If you want to watch that video, I'll leave it on the screen there. I go into a lot more detail about why I think the Gold Coast, in my opinion, is the worst city in Australia. Like, it's not awful, but for me, it's pretty overrated. There's way nicer cities in Australia. And again, I find that while some people agree, there's quite a lot of Australians that actually disagree with me on that and rave about the Gold Coast, speak about it like it's the best place, when in reality, I weren't a massive fan. I thought it was a bit run down, a bit dirty, and not that much to do. And some Aussies completely disagree with me on that one. And point number 5 is, I genuinely don't think the cost of living is that bad in Australia, but most Australians that I speak to definitely disagree with that, and some even get a bit pissed off that I've said that. To be honest, I don't even think the cost of living is that bad. Yes, it's an expensive country. Obviously, everyone knows that, but having been in the UK, I've lived in New Zealand as well. These places are way more expensive, in my opinion, than Australia, especially when you consider the fact that you get paid way more in Australia than you do in places like the UK and New Zealand. So the overall cost of living, when you consider the price of things plus the wage you get paid, I honestly don't think the cost of living in Australia is that bad at all. And that's not me saying it's not expensive, because it is, but I feel like Aussies speak about Australia being the most expensive place in the world. I don't think it is. I found it easier to save money here than anywhere, to be honest. And a lot of Aussies definitely get annoyed with me when I say that. I can understand some of you guys. I am lucky being a backpacker, so I don't have that many expenses. I always say that I can't comment for you lot who have families, you have a mortgage, whatever. Yeah, your situation is different, but I always say that I'm speaking from a backpacker's point of view. That is that the cost of living isn't that bad. So there is 5 opinions of mine about Australia that in general I would say Aussies disagree with. I'll be interested on this video to see how many of you actually disagree with these points, or if more of you do agree. These are kind of the most common ones I would say that people do disagree with me on. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments on this one, and I'll see you in the next video.